Hello everyone, we'll be starting with our today's topic, that is baroreflex. So the first key most important thing that you need to remember about baroreflex is that it's the first line control for blood pressure. This is a very important point. So whenever our body's blood pressure increases, the first thing that acts is the baroreflex. It acts within seconds to minutes. Now, the second important thing is the range at which it acts. So, it acts at 70 to 150 millimeters of mercury, and it is very important to know that it is not systolic blood pressure, it is not diastolic blood pressure, but it is the mean arterial pressure. Now, moving on to the real reflex. So, whenever there's increase in blood pressure, it is followed by decrease in blood pressure. Why does this happen? It happens because of the baroreflex. Now, this increase in blood pressure is always sensed by the pressure sensors. Now, these pressure sensors are the real baroreceptors. These are present at two locations in our body, the two main locations, that is the carotid sinus and the aortic arch. The carotid sinus, it is present at the internal carotid artery, and the aortic arch is present at the arch of aorta. Now, this carotid sinus is innervated by 9th cranial nerve and the aortic arch is innervated by 10th cranial nerve. Now, the part of the 9th cranial nerve that innervates the carotid sinus, it's the Herring's nerve. Now, it can come as an MCQ. Now, the aortic arch is innervated by the 10th nerve and the part of the 10th nerve is the Sines nerve. Moving on. So, whenever these nerves are innervated, the signal reaches the medulla. In the medulla, the most important nucleus is the nucleus tractus solitarius for this reflex. In nucleus tractus solitarius, it results in the sympathetic nervous system being inhibited and the parasympathetic nervous system being activated. As soon as this happens, the ultimate effect that occurs is the drop in BP as well as the drop in heart rate. So there is hypotension as well as bradycardia. And now let me tell you, this is the most important thing you need to remember about baroreflex, that the BP decreases as well as the heart rate decreases. Now, we have studied that it inhibits the sympathetic nervous system and activates the parasympathetic nervous system. But how does that happen? So in medulla, you have two main important nucleus. So first nucleus is the nucleus tractus solitarius. Now, this nucleus tractus solitarius, whenever medulla activates this nucleus, it releases glutamate. Now, what does glutamate do? It is an excitatory neurotransmitter, so it excites CVLM. Now, what do I mean by CVLM? CVLM is caudal ventrolateral medulla. After the caudal ventrolateral medulla is excited, it releases GABA. Now, GABA we know is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So, GABA, it inhibits RVLM. Now, RVLM is the sympathetic center, guys. RVLM means rostral ventrolateral medulla. As soon as this is inhibited, that means a sympathetic inhibition occurs. Now, the second most important thing is that the medulla, it also sends signals to the nucleus ambiguous. Now, this is the center for parasympathetic nervous system. As soon as this nucleus ambiguous is activated, the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. This ultimately results in what we studied here, drop in BP and drop in heart rate, that is hypotension and bradycardia. Now, the next important thing we need to know is that since there's hypotension and there's bradycardia, so we can also say that since this reflex started with increase in blood pressure, we can say that increase in blood pressure results in decrease in heart rate. Now, this was said to be a law that blood pressure is inversely proportional to heart rate. That means the increase in blood pressure leads to decrease in heart rate. This is the Mary's law. Now, there's not just aortic arch or carotid sinus. These are the most important ones, but we also have few other receptors which are low pressure or volume sensing receptors. Now, the important thing about them are that they are present in the atrium. So, as soon as our blood pressure increases or there's a change in blood pressure, the atrium, these receptors are also activated. So there are two types, type A and type B. So the type A act during atrial systole and the type B act during atrial diastole. So that is it, guys. That was all about baroreflex. So the most important thing you need to remember again is it's the first line control for blood pressure, the range, and that it is the mean arterial pressure. Then that the ultimate effect is the decrease in blood pressure and decrease in heart rate. about Mary's law, and about the RVLM. The RVLM is the sympathetic center. That's it, guys. Hope you have a good day.